Hello, good afternoon. This is Craig Ferrantino, President and founder of Craig James Financial Services, based in Millville, New York. We're providing these presentations, these educational webinars, as an opportunity for both clients, our radio listeners on LI in the AM with Jay Oliver, or LA News Radio, for all that hear me on the morning every day from 7:22 to about 7:34. Talk about things, and they know that I'm in the business of managing money for a living, and also I'm a big picture thinker, looking at opportunities for us to explore as investors. So we'd like to welcome all of you to our presentation. Today we'll be talking about small modular reactors, and it's something that I think will be maybe 3-5 years out, but we'll talk a little bit about the technology and how it does and what the importance of it. And as we're still getting a few more people signing on, I just want to let you know that if those have any questions, feel free to send out a question, or you can even go to chat. I'm going to send a chat to everybody, just get some of this information. There's a little hello, and you should be getting that in your little message area there on your presentation. Now we'll have a few seconds if you want to raise your hands, or if you want to just ask me personally a question. Obviously, we're not making any recommendations or advice on a generalized webinar, but we just want to get this information out there as a service. It's one of the things we do here at Craig James Financial Services. We here serve you with a dedicated team. We'll also be talking, if you like this presentation, we'll also be talking about quantum computing. They've had some starting to get a little bit of a tear in the markets, and we'll break down that industry, and there's plenty of others that we could talk about. And so we're glad you're here. I see enough people have signed on, which is great. We've got a good turnout. Thank you for coming. Small modular reactors, let's get this party started. All right, so you can read that for a second. That's for compliance purposes. All right, good. So today we'll be talking about what is a small modular reactor? How do they work? Why are they important? Who are some of the players in this industry? When is this going to come online? And then we'll make some conclusions about that, SMRs. As you can tell, we've designed this. John Paul Ferrantino, our analyst, has done a good job with these slides, very different, and should pop on your cell phone or on your screen. Small modular reactors are, well, let's talk about it. The history of it, when you think about it, the submarines, one of the ways you can detect the submarine is through diesel emissions. And if they're under the water, you'd see these bubbles going under the water, and all you need was a decent plane with some good surveillance equipment. Back in the 1940s and 50s, you could tell where the submarines were. They could stay underwater for a while, but they had just have problems with their emissions. So the first ones were done in the submarine designers, and were there to implement small nuclear reactors for use in nuclear submarines to improve the longevity of those. And if you have a few minutes and you want to take a look, go take a look up to New London, Connecticut. The Trident nuclear submarine is just on the other side of the ferry. If you're daring enough to take a day trip up to wonderful New London, Connecticut from Orient Point, take the ferry, go up there, and you can go to a couple of places, but that's certainly one of them. And you could see you could actually take a look at the first nuclear submarine, which has a small modular reactor on it. It's the point of that story. Okay. The first commercial SMRs were developed by researchers at Oregon State. That's important to know as well. And in 2007, starting in the 50s, people started doing that. The college students got into it a little bit, and sold to a company called NuScale Power in 2007. So when I say small, it's smaller than 300 megawatts. Give you an idea, a one wind turbine at maximum wind produces a megawatt. So you would need 300 wind turbines for something, basically the size of a small city block. And it powers about 60,000 homes. So small reactors. When you think of also our Navy has used a lot of the SMRs. You take an aircraft carrier, as huge as they are, if you've been to the ones that you've seen, particularly the one here in New York City, Yeah, that's also powered by nuclear energy. It's not powered by diesel fuel. It would take a lot of diesel fuel, and it gives weight savings, and it also reduces carbon emissions. So small is less than 300 megawatts. Modular means something that's easily manufactured. Think of a modular home with standardized designs that could be replicated and put together, sort of like Henry Ford did the Model A's. And reactor is nuclear fission used to generate heat. Now, the people that are mining as well as processing uranium have also had a little bit of an industry there too. So to support this, you're starting to see nuclear fission come back to the fore. We were so scared of, of nuclear energy from the days of that movie in the 70s, 3 Mile Harbor in Pennsylvania. It almost had a full meltdown. That scared it. And they had a movie about it. It scared the bejesus out of everybody. And we had the Fukushima power plant, which was a massive meltdown. And of course, there's Chernobyl, a good HBO series on that. But Chernobyl was also very scary there. So you do get some accidents, and obviously scientists learn from these accidents as well. All right. What kind of fuel powers these SMRs, small modular reactors? Well, it's HALEU, H-A-L-E-U, or sometimes we abbreviate by saying LEU, but high assay, low enriched uranium, high assay, low enriched uranium. And let me show you where this fits in. If you take a look at it, it's stronger than the nuclear power that you would see in a submarine or aircraft carrier. And but it's much, and I say that enough times, much weaker than what you would use for a nuclear bomb or some sort of explosive device. It's ramped up. It's in between. It's very close to the nuclear power fuel that we have now. This is just it's a little more concentrated. But you use less of it, and it's designed for a small modular reactor. So that's HALEU, which is important. There's a whole industry developing around the HALEU, and as to who has that. So where do we get the uranium? It's mostly sourced around Kazakhstan. That's one of the stans, Tajikistan, Kazakhstan, Pakistan, that whole area. Canada, the country of Canada, and Namibia. That's where some of the uranium is coming from. It's important to know. All right, so this looks like a very big plant. This is the first SMR that's out there that is constructed. This is in China. It doesn't seem that small from this picture, but if you look at that house, this is one reactor. You can take a look at the size of the cranes. It isn't really that strong, and you can see the supporting infrastructure. It's not really that big. You see the supporting infrastructure around it. But this is something that the Chinese are doing. And I want to let you know something that they're not really that small, but this is a big small modular reactor. But it's an early design, one of the first land-based reactors. And they wanted to take extra precautions around this. So the Chinese geniuses in manufacturing currently outpacing the United States in the efficiency of manufacturing. You're seeing this as their first step into this direction. The United States is behind in this technology, but we're getting there. Small modular reactors are useful because we're going to need a tremendous amount of energy. And as I say on the radio show this morning and last week, we're basically can only handle another 15% of energy of what we have now. Meaning that if we're producing 100, the United States will start shutting down if the demand goes to 115. And so that's a very, very narrow margin. We've seen states like Texas take it on the chin when they had, a year or two ago, when they had that ice storm, and kind of put them out of commission for a good period of time. And they were relying on various sources of energy, but they basically only planned the state with a minimal amount of energy, and they were cutting the amount of energy that was being fed to Texas. And obviously, they got jammed up during a time there was high demand. People needed to heat their homes. People were freezing. and they normally it's normally a high heat state. So, but the conventional server is where we are now. As you can see, by 2035, we're going to be doubling, absolutely doubling the amount of energy. So much so that if you caught it last week, Bill Gates came out and said that, believe it or not, in an Italian, we use the word volte face, in a complete turnaround. He basically argued that, it's not so important. Climate change isn't the, panacea, the problem that we thought it was. And we're actually looking at, we're more concerned about feeding the world's poor. With the Gates Foundation, they had been very heavy in the earlier years on going heavy, very heavy on terms of, climate change projects and things like that. And they're realizing that the chips that Microsoft makes, maybe, I think it might be a self-serving comment, but the chips that Microsoft makes needs a lot of power. And they're looking at what's available, and you need to have a lot of renewable energy, which is part-time energy. I'm talking about solar energy and wind turbines, but these chips need full-time energy and a lot of it. And there is no path to getting that done in the United States at this point without using natural gas or fuel or coal or nuclear energy. So that's a fact. Okay, energy demand is expected to double by 2050. We're sure for chips is going to double by 2035. That's 10 years from now. And you're seeing this, and then so don't forget, you got to be dealing with the cooling of these places as well. So let's take a look at because small modular reactors are modular, they can be mass produced and installed without the complicated planning process of a traditional nuclear power plant. And I think that's important to know. There's also growing pressure to decarbonize the grid, which means moving away from coal, moving away from natural gas. I don't know if that pressure is still very strong, but it had been strong. And also moving away from, non-traditional sources, traditional sources of fossil fuels. And so we're realizing nuclear power is an underutilized tool. All of a sudden, this is sort of a new revelation for people. It's more environmentally friendly. Now, you still have to deal with the nuclear waste, but that's a topic for another day. Obviously, we're not worried about that. We are, but we're it's not where the businesses are worried about. So development of small modular reactors is being led by China. Huge. They went online 2023, and another one is under construction. And they're heavily prioritizing nuclear energy. It's this demand for energy that's going to make the nation successful and competitive. And who can produce the most energy in the shortest amount of time is going to win the battle. 13 reactors they have built within the last 10 years, which is an enormous amount. Russia is looking for also doing that because they need to move. They have energy, they have natural gas, but they're also looking to move into the nuclear energy area, and so they're moving quickly to do that as well. And Japan has been they tested a small modular reactor, but there's no plans yet in our analysis for that. Let's take a look at another country though when we're looking at China, Russia, and Japan, and we're looking at the United States. So NuScale, as we mentioned that one company before, they were contracted to create the first United States small modular reactor in 2013. It was approved by the NRC, and contract fell apart in 2023 due to cost overruns. That whole project and what they're doing may be looked again, and it looks like it's going to be there. NuScale is based in Tigard, Oregon, that's in the other side. And they layer off and hired people over the years, but we're in a different energy environment. And they've been accused of being a Ponzi scheme at one point, but we're going to see what comes out of all of this in the near future. So in September 3rd of 2025, just a month or 2 months ago now, the TVA, the old Tennessee Valley Authority, which was one of the New Deal prospects under Franklin Delano Roosevelt, came in and started to work on something that's going to give 6 gigawatts of capacity. So very interesting there, but that's more of a nuclear power plant, but that's still a good amount of energy that's going to do that. And if the TVA gets involved, which is sort of it's an agency of the US government, it's not a direct obligation of the US government in terms of their debt, but I know they did float some bonds out there. You can get TVA bonds for nuclear energy, which is great. And they're going to, it looks like one of the areas they'll be picking up the horns. And I think the current administration is waking up different agencies such as the TVA to get these things under moving if companies aren't going to do it. So the United States also has Oklo, OKLO, on New York Stock Exchange, another interesting player here. Sam Altman, who is the head of ChatGPT and obviously is interested in making his own energy for his servers to keep his artificial intelligence going. He is interested, I'll repeat that. He's an investor that not only is making the chips and setting up the artificial intelligence farms, but he needs the energy, and he doesn't want to rely on PSEG to provide him his energy. He's got to create his own energy. And so he is taking a look at Oklo as one, which would be about to work on the ability for them to get more energy for his own artificial intelligence server farms. So let's put it that way. So it's about small reactors, Oklo, but not necessarily small modular reactors, and it's using radioactive waste and reacting it to minimize the waste. So it's actually taking old nuclear reactor waste and getting a little more. There's still a little energy in there. That's why it needs to be a place to bury it or find it somewhere. And Hanford, Washington is a place where we've been dumping some of the nation's nuclear waste. Not in the presentation, sadly, but that's how it is. And so if they could take some of that, because there's still some energy in there, because that would be a low emission uranium, we still have it. So they're working on that and trying to recycle some of the uranium that we didn't use in other places. So, and X Energy is another company. It's not public yet, but it's a small modular reactor startup, and they're going to power Amazon's data centers. And they do about 180 megawatts per reactor. That's plenty right there. As we said, 300 megawatts could power 60,000 homes. This could power maybe 20,000 homes, but there you go. The project is still in its infancy and has no regulatory approval. But as you can tell, this is we're at the very brink. I'm talking about something that's a couple years out, but very, very important. We could take a look at this too. The future value of the nuclear power market is designed, according to Bank of America, recently, the last few months came out with this estimate, $10 trillion, $10 trillion, so it's a good amount. And they've been delayed by, the whole projects have been delayed by cost estimates. We're looking at some of the past history, seeing that NuScale had some issues with that, but we'll see how that goes. Materials, very important. We don't have the commercial capacity to make the high assay, low energy uranium. And the other one, FOAK, it's not a bad word there, but let's take a look, first of any kind. And it's the, there's no precedent for this. No precedent for this. Doesn't mean it can't happen, but there's just no precedent for this. There was no precedent, by the way, for building a huge wind farm off the coast of Montauk, you know, but in New York here. But seems like that's going on. There was no real precedent for that, but we're doing that as well. So this is just one of those theories. It's a first of any kind. So we need to see where this is. The FOAK is an engineering term that refers to the fact that creating the first of anything is a really difficult process, especially something so specialized like a nuclear plant. It has its own supply chains, and it has its own supporting, materials, trains, whatever, however you get the material to it, and to develop it from scratch. And regulatory approvals from the government can be difficult. So much has to be done, but I think they're working on paving the way to make sure many of these get off the ground here in the United States, because again, it's the demand for energy is huge, and it's got a $10 trillion business in the next 10 years. So according to the Bank of America. So small modular reactors, to conclude, are an innovative green solution to rapidly expanding energy needs here in the United States, partially due to artificial intelligence, partially due, we have a mandate, I think, in New York State here that future homes have to be built with electric energy. The Hochul administration has signed some decree that is moving homes. I mean, you could renovate your house, but if you're building a new home, she wants electric energy to get away from the fossil fuels, which would be oil energy, which would be natural gas energy, which would be propane energy. If you heat your house with propane here in the Northeast, it's as you know, we rely on coal. We rely on certainly coal for some of the power plants, and heating fuel and or natural gas for most homes here in New York State. So of course, some in the remote parts of New York State are burning wood, which is even more carbon releasing. But nonetheless, we're going to go to electric, but we don't have the grid to do that. And this is a good step in the direction for something like the small modular reactor, which will create an opportunity for this. So if the U.S. can figure out the high assay, low emission uranium supply and use a regulatory burden, like China could do basically whatever they want, as you know, the new technology could be a viable answer to the upcoming energy crisis. So very, very important. Okay, this is our conclusion. This is just a short lunch and learn. Hopefully we kept it short and kept it a lunch and learn. We're at 12:24. Do we have any questions in the audience? I'll open it up. You just want to raise your hand. Let's go to the questions pane. Let me see what's out here. Is the current administration backing, okay, so a gentleman by the name of Neil asks, is the current administration backing the U.S. industry to keep up with China? First, let me start by a preface that we had some industry executives from the automotive industry go down and take a look at what China was doing. This is in the last month. They came back, and the quote from some Ford executives that compared to China, I'm going to use a quote here, the U.S. is uninvestable. Uninvestable. There is supposedly a plant in China that makes a cell phone in 1 minute, a whole cell phone. I haven't seen it, I just heard about it, but the amount of manufacturing, what they've been able to do, it's going to be, at the end, we measure gross domestic production, GDP. GDP of the United States is about $24 trillion. The production, the P, is using your resources, your agency of your population to manufacture something. If they're manufacturing something like a cell phone in a minute, it's just a real wake-up call. And certainly they have a host of electric cars which haven't made it to the United States, but who are also very, very excellent products in some instances, competing with the very best of our own here in the United States. So yes, the administration is aware of it. They still need those rare earths. So this whole negotiation with China is to make sure we get access to the rare earth, not just for the media try to put as for weapons. It's really about things like the HALEU here, which would give us access. It's not that China has it, by the way. I do want to mention this. You bring up a good point. Not that China has it. It's just that China has control of it in other countries. They went in and they bought stuff. They went in and they took over and they took rights to mines. And by the way, when they do that, if they're building a road, they want their money paid back. The U.S. goes into a country and basically gives them the money and they don't have to pay it back. But China goes in, they want something for it, which then brings us to the Ukrainian deal a month ago or so that supposedly the president made some agreement with Ukraine that we would have their rare earth minerals in Ukraine. My feeling is if the Ukraine actually had some sizable amount of rare earth minerals, that the Chinese would have been in there and taken it already. So they've been very, very good at taking natural resources around the world, and they have control of it. So the U.S. is aware of that, and I think we just need to break into that as well. We did find some of our own lithium and things like that in the United States. In Nevada, we found a good deposit of lithium, which would be quite helpful. Lithium is the lightest element to store a lot of energy out of all the elements in the periodic table, and that's why they're in your cell phones and everything else. So we need more lithium, certainly, but there's a lot more to that, and particularly uranium. We got to get control of a little more of that to make this viable. But that's a great question. We got a question from who is this? If your name is James, okay, hey James, they have a question that what is the future of other energy sources? There's some talk. Good question, James. There is some talk about, particularly for automotives. There's the idea of using hydrogen, the hydrogen powered engines, and hydrogen can power it. It's just harder to get to the hydrogen like helium. There's plenty of hydrogen, obviously, in water and everything else, but it's costly to separate the elements apart. But the end result of using hydrogen for energy is the emission is water, so it works very, very nicely. It's just a matter of getting it there. I think BMW has made some technology gains with hydrogen engines, and certainly Honda has a few hydrogen cars, not available in New York State, but in other states. To get it to the level where it's producing, 40 megawatts or 60 megawatts, that technology is being worked on, but it's still out there. Another technology which you didn't bring up is using like straw and sort of like farm byproducts, and finding energy in that as well. Again, that technology is out there. I know Exxon was working on that, but I don't think you're not for pound, dollar for dollar, you're not getting the efficiency that you get with nuclear energy. A small amount could go a long way. And once the plant is set up, you have a long shelf life on the small amount of HALEU that you need to produce, that can produce the energy. Let's say a pound of HALEU, this is incorrect, but a pound of HALEU could provide 10 years worth of energy out of a nuclear power plant. There's nothing more efficient or available and clean as that. There are other ways of getting energy. It's just that they become less and less efficient over time. These are great questions. We're backing up to 12:30. Anybody else? If you want to raise your hand, I could turn on a mic. We'll just take a quick look here. Do not see that, but again, thank you for both the clients, our listeners at LI in the AM with Jay Oliver, and stay tuned to our website, craigjamesfinancial.com. Just take a look at that. There are some upcoming webinars, including how do I best take Social Security out, but I think that we do draw a crowd for some of these analytics. We'll be talking about quantum computers. If you're in that, we did one on the big, beautiful bill. We have some recorded webinars you might be interested in. Just go to our website, craigjamesfinancial.com. And by the way, if I could put a little plug in, this is coming to the end of the year. This is the time to do a Roth conversion. Roth conversions end 12/31/2025. You want to do it for this year. You can always contribute to an IRA for this year up until April 15th of 2026. Not concerned about that, but am concerned about the Roth conversion. If you are interested in making your future tax-free and you want to pay the taxes now while we're in the lowest tax rates in our lifetime, please give my office a call, 631-393-2888, and let's get you on the calendar. We'll look to see if it makes sense with you. We're not giving tax advice or legal advice, but we do. This is the time of year to be thinking of that, and we'll be talking about that in the future. Have a great day. We're going to end the webinar for everybody, and we'll be in touch. Go to our website, and any consultations, feel free to call the office, 631-393-2888. Have a great day.